Coming up on this episode of the Hitstreak.
I learned to kind of just open my palms and say, God, use me. I know it's going to be hard, but it's also going to be incredible. Things changed for me.
Here is how Dr. Aaron Pryor changed my life. I used to hide my smile, covering my mouth in photos, holding back in conversations, even avoiding big moments. I didn't realize how much it was holding me back until I got my brand new veneers at Pryor Family Dentistry. It's not just my teeth. It's my confidence, my energy, my entire life. Visit PryorFamilyDentistry.com to book a consultation. Your life-changing smile awaits. Whoa. Check this out. Some of the world's biggest success stories started with nothing. Just grit, hustle, and a story worth hearing. If you've got a story that people need to hear, this is your shot. If you've been through the fire and came out stronger, you belong on this show. Email management@nickhyder.com or comment or DM the word Hitstreak to apply. The Hitstreak is where rags to riches stories have been told, and the next one could be yours. Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, today's guest is, when we first started this show almost 5 years ago, we made a list of all the people that we wanted to bring on the show to share their story, really just learn and have some fun. And one of the first 10 names that we added to that list was the gentleman sitting across from me right now. And normally I give a big, loud, awesome introduction. He don't need one. Ladies and gentlemen, R.A. Dickey.
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me. It seems like an eon from when I was pitching to you at Trevecca, and you were playing catcher, and we were playing the Purple and White World Series, and you were either, I think at one point you had moved from catcher to umpire, if I remember that right, trying to call that knuckleball for strikes and balls. But I mean, that was such a fun time and great memories. Well,
it's there's a lot of things that we could talk about today, but it was very, very cool when you were in your journey. That used to come back when I was playing at Trevecca, and you had a team. You were a captain of a team, and our purple. I think it was a purple, gold, and black.
Yeah, that's right.
3 teams, and you were the captain of one. You were the number 1 pitcher, played shortstop, batted third.
I was the manager too, so I put myself in all those places, of course.
Were you guys undefeated all those years?
I don't remember. I think we lost actually to one team, and it was depressing. I remember going to spring training feeling depressed because I had lost the World Series at Trevecca.
Well, R.A., that was something that I recognized early in watching somebody that was competing at such an elite level was when the game was being played. It was, you weren't out there messing around. You were really competing, man. It was cool.
Well, I just, I guess some of that's hardwired probably, and some of it's just, being competitive. But, whenever I felt like that was always a place for me that was therapeutic. And the more competitive I was, the more therapeutic it became. And then it allowed me to turn it off when I got outside the lines if I knew that it was full on when I was in between them. And so I always just practiced that way. And so that's probably why you saw that.
Well, the folks out there may be saying, like, how in the world did he end up at Trevecca Nazarene University playing in their Inter-Squad World Series? We both played for a forehand.
Yeah. And I actually played for 2. I played for Fred, who's Jeff Forehand's father, at Montgomery Bell Academy. And he would also have me play and pitch for his summer teams, which was a collegiate team at the time. And, if it wasn't for Fred, I probably wouldn't have achieved a lot of what I was able to achieve just because he gave me so much encouragement, opportunity, direction. I had a tough home life, and he represented a real stable force in my life in high school. That's where I got to meet his son, Jeff, who I also got to play for. Jeff was at Belmont at the time, playing second base and third base. And I just looked up to him, and he befriended me and was part of what his dad was doing at NBA, where I was in high school. And, ironically enough, I got to meet his sister, Lee Forehand, and ended up dating her for a bit.
No.
And she was an incredible, fun girl, and we had a great time. But I got to be real intimate with that family, Linda Forehand, Fred Forehand, the parents, Jeff, who coaches at Lipscomb now, and Lee. And I had the best time. Those are some of the fondest memories of my childhood.
How? Tell me a little bit about. My dad just goes on and on about. I mean, he's almost mythological in our house about Fred, about how amazing a person he was, and I'm always fascinated too with how a dad can cast a very large shadow. Okay, and for me, I didn't know how to use that. Everybody knows my dad, right? So I didn't know how to use that for a long time.
Yeah.
I almost looked at it as, I didn't look at it as it negative, but I treated it that way versus it was literally a launching pad to get in some great rooms and do some great things. Jeff is, I call him coach because he was my coach. But Jeff is like built his own thing. It's amazing to watch because Fred is he's held in such high regards.
Yeah.
It's amazing to do that. Tell me, like, who was Fred to you? Like, you knew him early, right?
Yeah, Fred was a teacher at MBA early in his career at MBA. Now, he was at Stratford before that. Then he came to MBA to be the head baseball coach, and he taught history. And he was really one of the first people that recognized in me a gift, and you know what that does for a child's spirit. I was developmental years. It was puberty and teenage years in 7th and 8th grade, and he said, R.A., you're an 8th grader, but I think you could be good enough to play on the varsity team that I'm coaching. And so that was my journey. My first interaction with him was that. It was, hey man, I believe in you, and that can set a kid free in a lot of different ways, and it did for me. It really encouraged me into motivate me, to be a really, really good baseball player. And he just gave me time. I think one of the things as a dad, I'm a dad of 4, I think it's just time spent means so much. And, I didn't have the most functional, stable home life. And so with Fred, it was all about just time spent. Like, I wanted to be around him. And he never made me feel bad for wanting to be around him. And that was important to me.
R.A., when, we always looked at you like we called you a friend when you were coming over to Trevecca all those years, 4 years or 3 years that I got to experience it, and you were doing it 8 even after I was gone. It was just really, really cool to have a guy playing at your level come back, hang out with us. Coach knew what he was doing because it motivated us.
Yeah, that was fun.
It truly did. But you were such a positive, competitive person that, if I'm being totally honest, when I read your book, I was blown away at the story. When a kid goes to MBA, you don't think tough times as a kid.
Yeah,
you don't usually associate those two things. So, how did you end up at MBA?
Well, it was kind of a circuitous route. I had an uncle who was kind of a bigger name in the world at MBA named Ricky Bowers. And Ricky Bowers ended up being the AD at Innsworth and was the head football and basketball coach at MBA. But he also was at MBA. So I grew up going to MBA games. His father, my grandfather, I think always wanted me to go to MBA. Okay. Now, we couldn't afford it. We were lower middle class family that lived in East Nashville. And so I bluntly got scholarshiped over there to go to school. And again, you have these kind of memory stones in your life that are life-changing things that happen that you can kind of, in retrospect, point back to and say, hey, that made a big difference. And for me, not even knowingly, I was craving discipline. I didn't have any structure, stability, friendships, all the things that, a normal human craves and that I felt like I was deficient in. MBA offered that in a lot of ways for me. And so I ended up over there probably to play sports, I ended up getting a great education, but at the same time, the relationships that I forged while I was there, I still have them. And, I learned so much about myself, adversity, how to handle adversity, but it wasn't easy. It was fraught with difficult times too.
As I was, congratulations on your getting inducted into the Amateur Hall of Fame here in Nashville.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Actually, it's not the Amateur Hall of Fame; it's the Professional Professional Baseball Players Hall of Fame, right? So all the guys came from Nashville. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
When they introduced all that, I was there at the banquet when they introduced all the stuff that you did. They told a lot about your story from the book. And as a guy that really, I learned that faith is a skill, and it's something you have to practice and get really good at.
It. Yeah, sure.
And I struggled with it for a long time. And then anytime I hear a story like yours, I always go back and I associate all the weak moments that I had. And it's the hardest to manage the highs and the lows. And to be as good of an athlete as you've always kind of been in multiple sports, I mean, every time you played a game, it was pretty much a celebratory moment, I bet it would seem. And then you might go home to the exact opposite, the highest of highs and maybe even the lows of lows. How do you, like, mentally, how did you learn to balance that, and how has that kind of like shaped who you are today?
Oh man, that's a great question. And I don't think I did it very well, admittedly. And from my time in high school to when I not graduated, but when I came out in the draft in 1996, I had a really good run of mostly highs, right? Like I was fortunate in that way. I was real blessed in the sense that, I was healthy and, I threw hard and I loved it and passionate about it, had great coaching and was able to execute. So I enjoyed being on the Olympic team and, doing things like that. And I was able to kind of sink back into that in a way that it started to really define me. It gave me all my value in a real toxic way, because if you let something validate you, it can invalidate you, right? And so I was being validated over and over again in a way that felt good, but all my identity was tied up in that. And it wasn't when I got to pro ball and started to really experience a lot of adversity through a number of different things, coming to terms with my story, my story of origin, like all the things that were in my past. I really had to do some soul searching. And to answer your question, that was, how did you manage all that? Very poorly.
Okay.
I developed a lot of mechanisms that were unhealthy and toxic that made me really good at making people believe what I wanted them to believe. But all the while, there was a lot of pain going on inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. That's kind of what I was getting at. Like, for me, over time, I've learned to embrace the skeletons in my closet.
Yeah,
they made me who I
sure.
am. And it's like, man, it's so free when you just don't care anymore. And you're like, yeah, it happened. It was what I did that, or it was what it was. And you can own it. Because that's, until you own it, you can't take accountability for it. Right. So, even me for a long time, and nothing to the scale of yours, but like I was hiding so much from everybody else, the things that weren't great or anything else. Like R.A, it was mind blowing to me. Like I had no idea. Nobody did that was your thing. How was it? Was it really hard for you to relive some of those things when you were getting into the book and everything?
Yeah, it was really hard, and I had to do a lot of work. And when and for those of you that haven't heard my story, I suffered sexual abuse pretty traumatically when I was 7, 8 years old, and just kind of tried to stuff that and built up these things that would allow me to compartmentalize that in a way that wasn't very healthy. And so my growth was stunted, really, as that 8-year-old boy who never came to terms with what had happened to him, what he had been a part of, the guilt that he felt because maybe it was my fault, like just never had any avenues to process that out. So I lived with that until, the first decade of my marriage, and, almost took that down, and, was a terrible father and was trying to come to terms with, how am I going to live, with all this? Because it was coming up and coming up and coming up over and over again, and no one knew. No one could empathize. I didn't have relationships that I could really trust, that I felt like I could trust. They were probably there, but I was scared to death because I felt like, the horror that the enemy kind of gives to a person that's been abused is if you share that with somebody, they're going to want to run the other way as fast as they can because you're damaged, you're broken, you're ugly, you're you're inhuman in a lot of ways, and it's hard. So, when I started to really kind of look that in the eye, things started to change for me in a real profound way. Yeah. I think I got a hold of my faith in a lot deeper way. I think, I went through a ton of counseling and sports psychologists, but I met a guy here locally. His name was Stephen James. He's a local counselor here who really changed my stars when it came to to coming to terms with that stuff.
Wow. Hi, folks. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and I just want to say a quick thank you for all of you, the millions of you tuning into the Hit Streak. We're literally getting the information from the people that have it to the people that need it by bringing on guests that everybody knows and some that not everybody knows yet. Keep listening, keep sharing, and keep leveling up with the Hit Streak. R.A., your entire career, and you may say it's been the same at home, it's been the same with marriage. I know my wife saved me. Like I didn't, you know, my mom and grandma raised me, but they weren't finished when I left. So like my wife had to finish the job, you know.
I know the feeling.
And she is an absolute saint. But like, R.A., you're high, like the highest of highs and the lows of lows. So high school, you're performing, I mean, gosh, you won every award you could have. You guys, every team you played on was probably, how many state championships did you guys accumulate in how many sports? I mean, it was wild, right?
It was a lot, yeah. It was fun.
To going home to the situation that you were in, getting to go to UT, you were at UT 4 years, right?
3.
3 years.
I got drafted after my junior year.
That's right. Team USA, that was like a 3-year run of highs. Were there any lows during that part of your life?
Yeah, you know, I mean, we won the bronze medal, not the gold. That was certainly sad. I think we all thought we were good enough to win the gold. Skip Bertman was our coach, and he was a legend. And we were on a team full of unbelievable amateur players. And Cuba, you know, of course, they were our nemesis, and they clipped us, and Japan clipped us. And so we ended up winning the bronze medal. That was probably a disappointment, you know. But other than that, it was a pretty nice experience.
How many times? Because so if the folks, if they're one of the few people who've been under the rock and don't know, you know, at UT you threw the ball hard.
Yeah,
had great stuff. Like you basically set all the records at that time at the University of Tennessee, the Olympic team. You're a shoe-in as a first-round pick. You're gonna get paid. All right, you're gonna get paid, and you did, but a fraction of what you earned.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and all that, I can't even imagine going through that because you didn't even know any of this stuff's happening. Like how much did how much was your faith challenged in that moment? Like, is this for me? Do I even go play? Like, did you ever consider quitting during all that?
Oh gosh, man. I mean, I went through every emotion you could probably muster up, you know. And what had happened was, you know, I had agreed in principle to close to $1 million, 18th pick overall with the Rangers. Went to take a physical. I'd never been hurt a day in my life, only to find that I didn't have the existence of a ulnar collateral ligament in my right arm or the Tommy John ligament that everybody else had. I didn't have that. Doctors didn't know if it was congenital, if I was born without it, or if I had ruptured it when I was real little, and my body compensated above and below the injury to allow me to do what I was able to do to be a first rounder. But every first round pick has to undergo a pretty comprehensive physical. And when they did that, they made that discovery. And then they reduced the signing bonus, if I wanted it, from $1 million to $75,000.
Wow.
And after taxes and an engagement ring for my wife, it was about $3,000, man. It was not a lot. So it was gut-wrenching. And what was even worse than that was it harkened back to the brokenness of my abuse. Like, I already felt like in the cobwebs of my heart, like, man, you're worthless.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the feeling that you carry. And you're pushing so hard to overcome that with athletics, with, you know, whatever it is. And that's what I did. I used athletics as a way to do that. But I just felt all over again this feeling washing over me of, you know, you're worthless. Like, you're broken. You know, you had this opportunity, $1 million on the plate, you're broken. And it made me relive everything that I had to endure when I was 8 years old and never come to terms with. So I still didn't know how to handle it. Yeah. And so I'm still dwarfed in my development, you know, emotionally. Didn't know how to do relationship well, not with my wife, not with my teammates, not with anybody really. Super manipulative and fake in a lot of ways because no one knew the authentic me. Right. And it was really the beginning after college of me starting this downward spiral or decline and starting to live some of those really low lows. But that's what happened with the draft.
Isn't it wild though how God uses those things to prepare you for what's coming?
Yeah, but in the moment you don't feel that, right? Like that's the rub. The
Yeah.
rub is, God's got something good on the other end of this, but golly, is it hard in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, and having the trust to be, and that's why I was so thankful for my foundational faith. Like, I came to know Christ when I was 13, and who is now my wife's house with her mom.
Wow.
Which was really incredible through her brother.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and I got down on my knees, asked Christ to be a part of my life when I was 14, because I was, again, looking for answers, feeling broken, feeling like, here's somebody that could relate to me. And so I pushed in, and glad that I did, because that foundational faith, even though it didn't get cultivated and developed over time, was really something that saved me. It was really the only thing that saved me.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to end it all, man. Like,
Okay.
there was a few years after that when I was at the bottom of the bottom. People might think, well, that's the bottom. That is not even close to the bottom for me.
Wow.
And so I went even deeper down the rabbit hole, and was actually in my car with, a garden pipe taped to my tailpipe, running the driver's side window with, I'll never forget, a blue, a yellow and white, a beach towel jammed in the crack so the monoxide couldn't escape.
Really?
And I was about to turn the key, man.
Oh,
like,
my
I was
gosh.
that close to it. And it was my faith that kind of brought me back. And there's not many times in your life where you kind of feel the conviction, or however you want to label it, where God is really talking to you directly, audibly. But that was one of them for me. And he said, I've got something more for you, man. Like, just take a breath. And the next day is when I started my journey with my counselor.
Wow.
Yeah, the pastor of my church came over, and I said, I need some help. Like, I was finally at that place where, like, I was at the bottom, and no one could help me on this planet, I felt like. And I told him, he said, well, let me link you up with this person. That person linked me up with another person. And that was the Stephen James guy I referenced. And we started a journey then that ended up in a really fruitful place. But there was a lot of heartache between that moment when I was 32 to in the moment when I was drafted when I was 22. So that decade was really, really hard.
It had to. I know when I've God and I have been in a nonstop wrestling match for my whole life, really, but really intentionally for probably the last 20 years. And
Yeah.
and it's always, for me, it's like the three stages of I'm not wrestling. I'm faithful. It's all fake, I'm in, which true, and then you look at if I look at how I spend my time, I would say, well, that's, that time wasn't spent very well. That time wasn't spent based on how God would want me to spend it. And then, it had to be tough for you to, in that wrestling match, to be like, you gave me all these gifts. Why would you waste them on me when I'm this dude, I'm this guy that's this damaged goods and everything else. For me, that would be the biggest struggle for me is, why did you give me all this if you're going to give me all this? Why would you do that?
Yeah, no, that juxtaposition is really hard to navigate for sure. I think, one of the sharpest arrows in the enemy's quiver is shame, right? Like, especially for men. Mm-hmm. And I felt a ton of it, and it was the driving force in my life. I didn't want to fail, and I was ashamed of failing, so I pushed. And I pushed, and I was stubborn, and I was an ass, and I was diligent, but I was also really good because of that. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't fulfilling, right? Like, it was hollow in a lot of ways. And it was all driven by shame. It wasn't until I really embraced a different way to perform that I got good, really. I was good just because of pure determination probably up until then. But after that, I got to experience a freedom and joy in my performance that I never thought possible. But it really came at the expense of a lot of trauma,
Yep.
right, and a lot of heartache and hardship, and had a lot of people who loved me well join me in that process to be able to bring that out of me.
I never will forget it, your first big league start, we were on the road when I was at Trevecca, and we watched it. We got to watch it all on the bus. It was a big moment for us because you had just been playing with us, not that long ago. And I want to talk a little bit about your wife and family, because just being a fellow Nashvilleian, watching your journey, I can remember when you were playing back for the Sounds, the rumblings would be, some people was like, yeah, he's still doing it, he's going to make it. And then some people would say, man, he's peaked as far as he's going to go. Yeah, and he just can't give it up.
Yeah, can't give it up.
I know that during those times, based on what minor league ball players get paid, there was probably a lot of, it was probably really, really hard to look your family in the face.
Oh, yeah.
And say, I'm going to go do this for this amount of money, when you could probably go, at that time, you were probably very hireable. You were young.
Young
you know,
enough,
everybody
yeah.
knew who you were. Like,
Yeah.
you know, talk to me a little bit about how the journey with your wife and just letting you stay the course to get there. Again, that's the test of the faith, right?
What a great question. You know, one of the things I always talk about when I go speak or about the book or whatever is just, we are all the product of people who have loved us well in some way, right? Like none of us, as much as we think that we are self-made men and we've done it on our own and all that bravado, the real truth is none of us are. And for my wife, like she is at the peak of the mountain for that for me. One of the things she always said to me, even in our darkest moments, was, R.A., I never want you to have a regret.
Oh, wow.
And when I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I mean, the freedom that I got to experience to keep pushing and pursuing. And hey, this knuckleball thing's hard, and I'm going back to A-ball, and as a 35-year-old man with 3 kids, and I'm going to have to, are you sure? I don't ever want you to have a regret. I don't ever want you to have a regret. And so she would make the cross-country flight to Tacoma when I was in AAA from Nashville over and over again with 4 kids or three kids, and 4 at the time. And I mean, by herself. I mean, just over and over again, taking bus rides and, van rides and everything else while I was trying to push. Like, again, man, you can't put I don't even know what to say. I mean, she was unbelievable and still is. She's incredible in the sense, in a similar way, in the sense that, like, one, she's not satisfied with who I am in a way, which I love. Like, she's wanting me to be who God's called me to be. And we have a real honest and open relationship. A lot of it is because of, all those years of going through hell, right? That we tell each other the truth all the time. And if you were to come into our house, you'd be like, God, Lee, are these guys happily married? And we would tell everybody, like, we love each other so deeply, man. That edge between love and hate is it's so thin, right?
Yeah.
But, we were made to be together, and that's all I can say. Like, there's not probably another woman that could endure what she has had to endure and still responded in the manner that she's responded.
Are you ready to take your brand digital? At HitLab Creative, we don't just make content. We build your digital foundation from the ground up. So whether you're launching a podcast, creating scroll-stopping social media content, or building a website that actually converts, we connect all the dots. Visit hitlabstudio.com/studio-time and let's build something that lasts. Because the HitLab is where digital strategy meets data-driven content creation. One of the I learned the hard way that you can't be grateful for something that you're entitled to, right? So you're either grateful for it or you're entitled to it. One or the other. With gratitude, it comes with a great state of mind, right? Versus entitlement, you're never happy. Look at how, I can only imagine, you're going through these tough times. Were you grateful for her back then during that time, or were you so focused on the problem?
I took her for granted so much, I can say that in retrospect, and I probably still do, right? Man, like, I'm not a finished work. I won't be this side of eternity. But, like, she knows it's not intentional. I think that's the problem. The thing that helps is, like, she knows it's not on purpose. She knows I'm working hard. I know she's working hard, and so there's a lot of grace there, right? Like, God gives grace to the humble but opposes the proud. I need more grace. So speaking of that gratitude, like, if I can be grateful for her, for the moment, for my children, for this time with you, like, basically the nuclear part of everything that I learned in counseling is, like, how do I live the next 5 minutes well?
Oh, wow.
Like, how can I do that over and over again through the course of a day? And when I embraced that as a performer, as a baseball player, my stars really changed, both relationally with the people around me and as a byproduct, not the first thing, as a byproduct. My athletic career really shifted gears.
Yeah. As I've been fortunate enough to work with, there's some folks doing some great things in this town in the world of recovery.
Yeah.
And it's wild because the more I learn about how they help people, the more I realize I'm in recovery, just not for substance abuse.
Sure.
We're all in recovery from something. Some guys are in recovery from dirty videos on the internet.
Yeah.
Some guys are in recovery from eating the wrong foods or TV, or even we're all in recovery from a screen.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. Joe Walsh had a song that that not a lot of people know, but it was Joe Walsh was a bad addict, and it was I have to learn to live my whole life one day at a time, and that is recovery. And Coach used to always say, Jeff used to always say, focus on the next pitch, the next pitch,
Sure.
the next pitch. You hear all these things all this time, but until you figure out how to use them, there's something that's instilled in you, but you have to learn how to apply those things, right? So I'll tell a quick little story that I love to tell. I've struggled ever since I went to Trevecca. I've struggled with going to church.
Yeah.
All right. Not because at first it was probably because I felt like I felt weak if I needed help. Okay. So I didn't realize that was the strength. But the reason that I've struggled with it sometimes is because when I look, proximity is really important to me. Like I feed off that, and I'm going there to be healed, but like I was surrounded by people that church became just what they did on Sunday. They didn't, and I figured that out by my wife and teenage son. We'd get in the car after church every Sunday, and I'd say, "What'd y'all get out of the sermon?" Well, they would always just tell me what the pastor said. I didn't ask what he said. I asked what you got out of it and how you're going to use it. And that was the big thing for me, is like I realized I'm just sitting around with people that can tell me what the pastor said, but they don't know how to use it. Church is a great place for my wife and my kids, and now I've learned to leverage that and grow. But for a long time, I felt I just didn't want to go. I felt like I'm surrounded by. I almost looked down on the people, if you can imagine that, for feeling that way and realizing that I was the bad guy. I don't really know where I was even going with that, all right, if I'm being honest, but it was just something that like it just felt like it was on my heart to say. But proximity is it's so important, and I guess I was kind of going back to the source of you going home at night to what you had to deal with, and it's just the tale of two worlds, man. And I get stuck on it a lot because it's something that I've battled with for a long time. As a parent, you want your kids to hang out with the best that they can, and then something happens as adults. We don't always audit our own circles and surround ourselves with the right people. How did you leverage these elite athletes, these amazing coaches, the brilliant minds in the greatest sport in the world? How'd you leverage those and feed off that?
So I think it just had to do with appreciation, like understanding that, part of my journey was the realization that everybody has their own journey. And there was something to glean from their experiences. I think before I was so ashamed of my own story, I didn't really care to know about yours. Right? Like that was something that I had to come to terms with.
Wow.
And so, although I would make you feel like that wasn't the case, that's really how I felt. And when I embraced kind of my own story of origin and where I'd come from and my hopes and, my dreams, and then it helped me appreciate all those people that were trying to pour into me and give me what they had.
Yeah.
Whereas before I thought like you a lot, like, I can do it on my own. I don't need help, blah, 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 and if I would, like when I came to give up conventional pitching and embraced being a full-time knuckleball guy, I would have never been able to do that had I not been through the trauma and the recovery of coming to terms with my story.
In life, my wife and I are big dreamers, and there's things that we've been working for a long time. Some of them we're still working on today. The life of a professional athlete, a main word is absence.
Oh, yeah.
And I can imagine, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but when you and your wife are building your relationship and building a life together, and you're like, I'm going to be on the road, but it's not permanent. It's temporary. It's not temporary. And it ended up being probably 10 years longer than you guys had probably planned for. Talk to me about how the wrestling between that, how you guys manage that, because ironically, when most guys are on their way out the door, you were having your best years, your peak years at the very end.
Yeah, and that was ironically very helpful, right, in the context of Ann and I's marriage. My wife's name's Ann. But like I played for 21 years, and you can do the math.
That's wild.
162 games a year, 108 in 183 days plus spring training. So you're gone, well over 200 days a year from home. Now some of those days they're in and out, but for the most part, you're having to be very independent. She's having to be very independent, and it's really, really hard because she needs you, and you need her, whether you admit to it or not. And I think what was helpful for me is when I got to the place where I could admit it, it really did a lot for our relationship. Like, hey, I need you. I need you to be strong. I need you to be encouraging. I need you to take care of the family. Like, there were a lot of needs that I had that I was never before. I would just assume that they were going to occur without communicating well or doing all the things that we do as men. And so it was helpful late in our marriage that I was able to get some success because she started to feel like, well, maybe it was worth it. And maybe, I did have something to do with this. Of course she did. But, from age, I won my Cy Young at 37 years old.
I know,
which
man.
is, only God can make a story up like that, right?
Yep.
And so from 34 to when I retired as a 42-year-old player, those were some of the sweetest years of our marriage just because we were able to do a little bit more. I was able to talk to, when I had a little bit of status, if you will, I would negotiate going home after I started for 2 days. And the manager would be like, sure. And I was with teams that would allow that. And it was incredible. And so to answer your question, it got better later for us. I think a lot of it was too because I had some success.
And the amount of gratitude, if you'd have had the success earlier, you guys wouldn't have appreciated it as much. There's no way.
Yeah. And I don't know if, truthfully, I want to say that we would have made it. But the truth is, if I would have had success early, I would have thought that my path was the right way to go.
Yeah.
Right? And so I probably would have hung on to it and clinged to it, even when it started to decline. And I don't know if my wife would have put up with that.
Yeah.
Right? But because I struggled early and had to get help, she was able to see the effort that I was putting into our marriage in a way that was, like a life preserver in a lot of ways. Like she got it. Like, he's working hard. Yeah. And I want to be a part of this transformation. And like, she had work to do too. It's all about that. But she was, she's special, man.
As I've the greatest in the world at anything, the elite, they're very intentional. It's not on accident.
Yeah.
None of it's by accident. Jordan didn't do anything on accident. Kobe didn't do things on accident, right? Derek Jeter, it was all very intentional. I learned a lot about the importance of, some people call it goal setting. I call it targets because I think a target is smaller.
That's
and I think
good,
the best at anything is the best at hitting targets. My goal was always to play professional baseball, which I did. I didn't know how to set the right goal. Okay, because once I got there, I didn't really know where to go.
Because the minors count as professionals.
They do, yeah, they do. So I hit my goal.
Yeah.
And 6-7 years in, I realized I didn't have the right goal, and it was like, and I'm tired of being broke, and let's do something else. When you see the Cy Young hanging on that wall, first of all, I'd touch it every day. I'd touch it every day. But was that always the goal?
That was never the goal. I can't think of one moment that I ever thought I'm going to go win a Cy Young. Because when I was in that space in time, I was so much more consumed with how can I be a good dad?
Okay.
How can I be a good husband? And the crossover was, well, the way to be a good husband and be a good dad is to be present. Just like when I talked to you about Fred Forehand at the very beginning of this journey, I went back to that stuff and being present with my craft as a pitcher. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. And then I would list out what that really meant. Like, to me, it meant, putting in the work, being consistent with the work, being coachable, being teachable, getting in the film room, studying, asking good questions to people who knew more than I did about the knuckleball. Like, all those things I was able to delineate, okay, these are the things I need to do to be present with my craft. But I didn't really have a formula until I had gotten through all that work. And I feel like for the listener out there, I am giving them thousands of dollars worth of counseling
Yeah.
in the framework of the show, because I'm regurgitating all the things that I learned and have made a lifestyle presently. And those are the things that really saved me. That's why I won a Cy Young. It was not because I said, I'm going to go win a Cy Young and nothing's going to stop me. It was actually the opposite. It was actually, I'm going to be present with this moment in this pitch, in this pen, so that hopefully the byproduct eventually will be something that I can trust at the big league level. And I did that over and over and over and over again. And I do think something in my DNA that God gave me at birth was I'm ridiculously stubborn. And so I wanted, and also ridiculously resilient. So, you know, yes, I've won a Cy Young, but I also hold the record for the most home runs given up in a major league game. Right? I have both of those things.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've been booed off of Arlington's mound in Texas. If you've been booed by a Texas person, you've really done something bad, because they're nice. Right? And I got booed off the mound after giving up 6 home runs in 3 2/3 innings in 2006, trying to be a knuckleballer. So I experienced that too. But all the while, it did not deter me from those bullet points of how can I be present with my craft. And I would just keep showing up until eventually I had some real breakthroughs.
You ready to transform your business and unlock new revenue streams? At Processing First, we empower our partners with cutting-edge payment solutions and unparalleled support. By leveraging our extensive network of banking partners, we match you with the ideal bank to ensure that you receive the most competitive rates and deliver an exceptional experience for both you and your customers. Visit processingfirst.com to learn more and join our growing community of successful partners. What was it you think they saw in you with the knuckleball? Because I remember when you first started doing that, again, going back to all the naysayers out there, like, what's he doing? I mean, literally, you were in college baseball, you were the best of the best, and you did the exact opposite of what a knuckleball pitcher does. Like your entire approach and game and skill set, literally, you went polar opposite, and that's where you found all your success. And as a stubborn guy, how hard did you fight that, and how did those mentors get through to you when you got to work with those great knuckleballers of the past?
Thank you for that question. The one of the keys was, and I can just tell you, the first 10 years of my career, I was a conventional pitcher, throwing mid-90s with a good sinker, changeup, all that.
Nobody threw 90s back then, by the way.
No, that's why I was a first rounder. I threw hard, but over time and just through general attrition in my arm, I'd thrown so many pitches, and you know how many pitches I threw in high school and college and everywhere in between. Every spring training, I'd go in and it'd be like a mile an hour down or 2 mile an hour down, until at the end of that 10-year segment, I was throwing 87, 88 miles an hour to Vladimir Guerrero in the AL West, and that just wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could see the writing on the wall. So I was in a place where I had enough self-awareness to know, hey, if I'm going to stay here, or if I want to keep chasing this dream, I'm going to have to come up with a weapon that can consistently get a big league hitter out. Oral Hershiser was my pitching coach at the time, and he recognized in me that I had a good knuckleball.
He's a bulldog. I met him before.
Yeah, he's amazing. He and a guy named Goose, who was our bullpen catcher, Mark Connor, they said, "Hey man, you've got a really good knuckleball." They would watch me play catch on the side with it, hitting my catch partner, and it would move all over the place. And they're like, "You should throw that in a game." Well, I didn't ever think about doing that full time. I just thought, okay, whatever, because I was still attached to that ego. But when I started to really embrace, hey man, you got to change something because it's not working. I'm seeing bullets flying off the walls when I'm out there. They brought me in the office and said, hey man, we don't think you can do it anymore. Speaking of the mentor question.
Wow.
We don't think you can be a big league pitcher with your arsenal anymore. But we do think you could be a knuckleball guy like Tim Wakefield. They had watched Tim Wakefield come into Arlington Stadium and throw up 3-4 hitters against them. They didn't know what to do with that. And they were like, we want one of those, and we think you can be one of those.
Wow, okay.
And so that was how it changed. I had in that moment to say either I'm going to embrace this and go try to be a full-time knuckleballer, or I'm going to say, no, give me my release. I can still do it as a conventional pitcher. But all the while I'd been doing work, right? Like I'd come to the end of myself. I had been really trying to figure out, who I was. And I was in a space, thank God, that my ego had dissolved away, and I was looking for a different path. And the knuckleball offered me that path. And I had people who believed in me saying, hey, here's a runway to go try this. Go back down to AAA and try to figure it out. Now, there's a lot of questions that come with that. Like, there's nobody on earth. There's probably 5 people on earth that have ever thrown one at this point. It's like Phil Necro, Tim Wakefield, Charlie Huff, and like 2 others. So the ordinary pitching coach can't just say, here's how you throw a good knuckleball.
Right.
This is what it's supposed to look like. They have no idea. I'm having to coach them on how to coach me.
Wow, they had to bring in consultants.
Yes, and so my first consultant was Phil Necro. And so Phil Necro changed my grip. Then I met with Tim Wakefield. Tim Wakefield changed my mechanic a little bit. Then I met with Phil Necro. And Phil Necro gave me the last piece of the puzzle, which was, you have enough arm strength to throw this thing hard. I never had that. I had to throw it slow. So go throw it hard. And it freed me up to go throw it hard. And when I started to embrace that personality with the knuckleball, it took off, man. I mean,
Wow.
that was how I got there.
When you were talking about that, I kept in my head, I was thinking about the famous Frank Sinatra song, My Way. I did it my way.
Yeah.
And it's cool because there's 2 takes to that. You fighting it, saying, no, I'm going to do it my way, which is fastball, sinker change, all that stuff. But now you can look back and be like, no, I did it my way.
Yeah, I guess you could. That is a good way to look at it. And I also did it, a lot of other people's ways, right? Like I had to be open to Phil Necro's way. I had to be open to Tim's way. And if I wouldn't have had the dose of humility that comes with really doing a lot of self, analyzation and being self-aware, I would have never gotten to the space where I felt confident to let those people into my life in a way that could transform me.
Yep.
But thankfully I was, and that's what it took. And I think any good leader probably possesses that skill. Somewhere along the way, they realized they weren't enough. And what do you do with that? Well, you got some options, right? You got some options when you realize you're not enough. It's either get to work, find people that love you well, that you can trust and invite into your circle, or I'll keep believing that I've got all the answers. It's one of 2. There's no in between. And so which one you choose determines your destiny in a lot of ways. And I was in that space where thankfully I was like, I need help and I need people to show me what they know. And if they don't, I'm going to fail.
Wow. So you're coming to the end of your career, and it's the highest of the highs, literally, and the lowest of the lows. I got to ask you, what was your favorite park, like the coolest park you ever played in? I do need to ask you that.
Okay, so I have a couple. I mean, I love Citi Field because that's where I had most of my success. But, man, I thought PNC Park in Pittsburgh, right on the Allegheny, is an unbelievable place to watch a game and play. I loved Seattle's field, Safeco Park at the time, was gorgeous, and I played there. I got to play with Seattle for a year with Ichiro, and that was fun. And so those 2, along with Citi Field, were probably my favorites. Now, Fenway and Wrigley, all that's got a lot of. But if you're talking about just
You pitched at Yankee Stadium?
old Yankee and new Yankee,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and those were both great. Don't get me wrong, a lot of nostalgia there, but my favorites are probably PNC, Safeco, and Citi Field.
Right. And, when I was thinking about how we're going to position this interview today, the athlete wanted to talk about all the Ichiro stories and all those kind of things. But, man, there's so much, like, the internet's flooded with that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about you're done with your career. How long was it before you wrote your first book?
So, ironically enough, I felt a conviction, and I felt like it was a calling, really, to write my book in the middle of my knuckleball career. I feel like I've had 2 careers, right? The first decade of my career was my first part of my professional career. That was a career. I got 2 years of service time, and 10 out of 10, the other 8 were really spent in the minor leagues up and down. And then the second 10 years, which was my knuckleball career, and it was about 4 years into my knuckleball career, I just had a pretty good year with New York and felt like I had a platform to kind of talk about some of the things that I had been dealing with that could possibly be helpful to other people, because I felt like these were some big epiphanies that I was coming on that I wanted to share. And so I felt a real conviction. That was in 2010. I started kind of really writing the book. But I had journal entries dating all the way back to MBA in 1991 and 92. I was a real big believer in journaling, always have been. So I would reference those journals as I was writing the book. And so I would really be able to give people a real-time feeling about what was going on in that moment, because I had it as a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And so it was really nice. And it was super therapeutic,
Yeah.
but super frightening, right? So I had just experienced 2 pretty good years with the Mets. I just kind of signed my first real contract, which was awesome.
Yeah,
And
I mean-
I was coming into the 2012 season, which was the Cy Young season.
Yep.
And it was I had this last year with the Mets under contract, and I thought, these are some really risky things I'm about to do.
Yeah.
I'm about to kind of, throw myself under the bus in a lot of different ways by releasing this book
Yeah.
in congruence with the beginning of the 2012 spring training season. I'll never forget, man, sitting in the parking lot. I mean, I had tears coming down my eyes because Sports Illustrated had just written the first book excerpt, and it had been released.
Wow.
And so every teammate that I had, and it was the hardest part of the book that they chose to put as an excerpt in Sports Illustrated. So they released that.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I was in my car going, what are these people going to think of me? Like all those old demons coming back. And I was able to kind of take some deep breaths and really remember, how can I live these next 5 minutes well walking into this clubhouse? And I did that, and I probably had, some people didn't say anything, which is fine, but there were 3 people in particular that came up to me within that week and confessed to me that they had similar experiences that they never told anybody about. Teammates.
Wow.
Yes.
In the same clubhouse.
In the same clubhouse. Jeez. So imagine how many people out there shared a similar story.
Yeah.
And that was always the hope. And that's why I felt such validation in that moment that God had convicted me to do that, because there was something in this journey of faith and tragedy and joy that people needed to hear. And it manifested right in front of me on the first day I went into spring training. And it just set me at such ease. Like, okay, it's going to be okay. Like, these people are encouraging, and they're wanting to know more, and they're curious. And I'm not this pariah or this thing that nobody wants to be around because I've told the truth about my story. And it was really cathartic. And so that's something that really freed me up, man.
Was that the beginning of the season?
That was in spring training of 2012, the year I won the Cy Young.
So is it fair to say that, like, all the baggage all the weight you were carrying,
yeah,
that year when you could finally let all that go, that's when you peaked?
100%. I mean, to be able to
That's the lesson, right?
That's one of the lessons, maybe it's the main lesson, but the freedom you experience not having secrets. I mean,
yeah.
And I get it that it was to the greater population at that point, and maybe they had a right to know, maybe they didn't. That wasn't for me to decide. Mm-hmm. But within the context of who I was and who I was hoping to become, it meant everything. Like, it was so freeing.
Hey, pardon this quick interruption, but it's a good one. You're listening to this ad right now, which means someone else could be listening to your ad in this exact spot. Go to nickhyder.com/contact-me or click the link in the show notes to get started. Let's put your brand in the spotlight right where it belongs. All right, as we sit here today, it's hard to believe it's only been 10 or so years since you were doing all that, but then that's 10 years of a lifetime, especially in your life. Tell me about what you got going on here today. Locally in town.
Sure.
Talk to me about the NAHT organization that you're doing a lot with.
Thank you. Right now I'm really enjoying. I have a 40-acre farm in Franklin, and we got animals. It's a hobby farm, but we grow some food for ourselves and enjoy that. And I get to coach at CPA, Christ Presbyterian Academy. I'm the pitching coach still. My son's a senior, and I've gotten to coach him the whole way out.
Coach Nesbitt,
Which
I
is
love old Larry.
Yeah, Nesbitt's special, man. And he, I just wanted to be around my son, man. I'd missed so much of his life. So when I came back after I retired in 2017, I wanted to get involved in a way where I could be next to him. Mm-hmm. My girls had kind of gone on to college, and it was a way for me to do that. So that's been a real privilege for me to get to do that. And I get to work with a nonprofit called the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. And I got involved in the anti-trafficking space when I started to come to terms with my own story. I felt like God was calling me into that space just because my story was a lot different than a trafficked person, but similar wounds from abuse. And it was a perfect space for me to kind of get involved in. I did it for a number of years internationally, where it's much more of a snatch and grab, kind of the movie Taken. That does happen internationally.
It's wild. I had no idea that we were walking around all in it here.
Yeah, and here it's a little bit more cosmopolitan, right? Like it's more grooming is happening.
Mm-hmm.
The internet's a much more is a much bigger player in the human trafficking world here, and we're also in Nashville at the nexus point of 440, 65, 24. So the influx, and we've got professional teams everywhere. So, I was asking God once I retired, like, how can I be involved in my community? And Mary Trapnell, who is the executive director of the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition, showed up at my door. It's like God smacked me in the face and said, "You asked, here you go."
Wow.
And I got involved right before COVID and been involved ever since. And it's been a wonderful thing. And if you're interested in helping, you can visit nahtcoalition.org. And there's a million ways to serve, give, all that. And it tells more about what we do. But we work closely with the TBI, so we get to be part of, for instance, if there's a brothel above a pool hall on Murfreesboro Road, the TBI will call us and give us access to the girls before they bust it.
Wow.
So we can try to rescue a lot of the girls who are in there. They're all, all of them have a drug addiction. So but we have all the pieces in place to really help them thoroughly from start to finish. And I love being a part of that. So thanks for that question. But that's what I'm doing here locally, and that keeps me plenty busy.
Absolutely. Well, awareness is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was first exposed to it, I was blown away. One of the ways I was exposed to it is the Target in Brentwood.
Yeah.
They're like, "Nick, that's a hot spot." I'm like, "How?" They're like, "Because it's literally like you're in the parking lot of Target and you're on the interstate in 200 feet, or a few meters, like and then you're gone."
Yeah, and no zip code is immune in this. We do rescues in the most affluent zip codes, man, like Belmead, Green Hills.
Mm-hmm.
There was a situation right off Charlotte by White Bridge Road where a trafficker had reversed the door locks and made the doors lock from the outside and had two girls in the Days Inn.
Wow.
One of them escaped, was able to call us. We were able to help her. But this stuff is going on right under our noses everywhere. Yeah. And our most vulnerable demographic is middle and high school students. So I get to go into middle and high school assemblies and talk to them about what to look for, the part that pornography plays in it, like all the things that are hard to talk about, but need to be talked about in our present day and age. And it's a real gift to get to do that.
Well, I would encourage everybody to embrace it. I remember when I was telling my parents about it, and they're like, "Oh man, I don't want to hear about that." Yeah, it's like, but it's right here. And like, as a husband of a wife and the father of a young girl, like, it's like, you got to keep your head on a swivel and you got to be aware, because it happens to it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, and it can happen through any number of people that you think are legit, right? Like, that's the scary part. It's just, you got to be, you said it, have your head on a swivel, educate yourself about things to look for on your kids' phones.
Yep.
And we have all that kind of material on our website. So please visit it.
Absolutely. We're going to do something cool today that I don't always do in our episodes, and we're going to have, some people would call it a rapid fire round. I'm not in a hurry.
Okay.
So we're gonna rock through these and have a little bit of fun. But I've even got some notes over here. All right. So, one moment on the mound that you still replay over and over again in silence.
Okay, professionally or as an amateur?
Your amateur career was as cool as your professional career, so
okay,
whichever one
I'll
you
give
want.
you two. I'll give you two. I'll give, as an amateur, I replay the Oklahoma State game when we won the regional game to get to go to the College World Series in 1995. Todd Helton was on the team.
Yeah.
I was on the team. We had a real special group.
Yeah, you did.
And I ended up, and I should have never done this, but I ended up throwing all 11 innings through 183 pitches.
Come on.
In a regional final. And a lot of times I'll think two things about that. I'll think, that was so fun.
Yeah.
And then, why did my coach do that? So that's one. And then the second one is, there was a special moment I felt like I had on the mound against the Baltimore Orioles. I had just thrown a one-hitter versus the Tampa Bay Rays, and it was the very next start. And it was the last at-bat versus Chris Davis, and I was on the verge of throwing a second one-hitter, the first time it had ever been done. And I struck Chris Davis out on a knuckleball to end the game, and the feeling and sensation that I just felt run through my body was like, like pure electricity. I mean, that's a moment I'll never forget. Just completing something that was really hard to complete with a group of guys that wanted it so badly too. We weren't having a very good year. It was in 2012, so everybody was kind of pulling for me to do something special in a year where our team wasn't doing special things.
Yep.
And so that was a moment for me too.
All right. So the next one is one failure in your life that kind of sticks out that you're grateful for because it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, it might have to be two, because two ring true for me. One is failing as a pitcher, as a conventional pitcher. If I didn't fail as a conventional pitcher, I would have never been able to embrace a knuckleball that propelled me to another 10-year career, basically, to be able to pitch into my 40s. I think the failure of that also forced me to reconcile a lot of the things in my life that weren't right. So I'm really thankful for that. The other one is my ability to be a leader for my wife. Like I failed miserably at that for a number of years.
Same.
And just wanted to do it differently. I for sure mess it up still, but not nearly to the degree that I did. And when I do, I'm usually pretty repentant of it because I know what I've done. Whereas before, I thought I was justified in it. Right?
Yep.
It's her fault. So those two failures really, I think, have made a huge difference in my life as a man.
All right. This one's probably my favorite one out of the ones. So who's the one person, and you may have a couple, but who's the one person that saw you for who you actually are, that saw you clearly before even you did?
Well, I mean, I feel like Miss Dickey, like Ann. I mean, she saw something in me even in middle school. I mean, we were middle school friends, and we've been through a lot together, even as friends. And she would always say, "You're going to do something special."
Yeah.
Like even before that was a real thing, right? Like I was a high school acne punk, right?
Yep.
Like, and she's like, "Man, this guy's got something to him," right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, she was in for that. And secondly, I really feel like Fred Forehand. And not just because we talked about him earlier, but I would say that if somebody else asked me the question too.
Right.
He saw in me something that was worth cultivating.
Wow.
And he didn't just stop at a baseball player. Like, yes, it helped his team, and he probably had a dog in the hunt a little bit for that. But at the same time, he didn't leave me there. Like, he pursued me as a human. And it was really the first time a coach had ever done that for me. So those two people.
Yeah. All right. So this one is kind of deep because for me, baseball's probably been the greatest life teacher that I've had. Right. So what's the greatest life lesson that you were taught that baseball didn't teach you?
That baseball didn't teach me.
Because you're known as a baseball player, right? That's what you're remembered.
Yeah,
as. Most people know you as.
I think the best life lesson that I've been given. Now it impacted baseball, but I didn't learn it through baseball. I actually learned it outside of baseball when I was doing my work with the counselor. And we talked about it earlier, but it's just how do you build this lifestyle of being present, moment minded, right? Like, how do you breathe right when things are spiraling fast? How do you communicate right when you're angry? How do you, like, all those little things? That's really stuck with me. Is we're not given tomorrow, right? Like biblically, or just look around at our world.
Yeah.
So how do I live those next 5 minutes well over and over again? Now, it did impact baseball, but it's not something I learned in baseball.
Right. R.A., as we bring this episode to a close, I keep getting reminded. I've told this story multiple times, but my wife and I had a friend through my wife who passed away in the last couple of years. She passed away unexpectedly. It was young, but at her funeral, I heard one of the greatest and most courageous things I've ever heard in my life, and it sticks with me today. I think about it all the time, and I've been reminded of what this lady said, which I'm going to say in a minute, multiple times as I'm talking to you today. So we lost a friend unexpectedly at a very young age, and she had a young son, and her mother was always an amazing woman, but her mother stood up at her funeral. She's at the pulpit. Her daughter's laying in front of her. And she stood up there with all the confidence in the world, and she said, "I want to thank the Lord for trusting me to handle the suddenlies." And she said, "Not that long ago, I suddenly lost my husband. And today I'm standing in front of you, and she said, I want my grandson to know we're going to be all right. We got this." She said, "But I stand in front of you today, and I suddenly lost my daughter." And she said, "And I want to thank my Lord Jesus for trusting me enough to handle the suddenlies."
Wow.
It's one of the greatest things I've ever
Holy
heard.
smokes, man.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it goes back to gratitude, doesn't it?
Yeah, man. I mean, and trust, right? Like, but I mean, golly, I don't know if I would have had that constitution
I agree.
in that moment, man. What a gift
Yeah.
that she had to say those things.
I agree.
And how true they are. But I don't know if I would be man enough to do it.
It's
I'd be wrestling,
absolutely.
like you said. I'd be wrestling.
Absolutely. But again, it was almost like,
amazing.
And I got to talk to her after she's since passed away.
Oh, wow.
An amazing lady. Like literally, she changed lives that
man.
day.
Holy cow, she did.
And I mean, think about that. God used that horrible thing, and it changed me. It changed my wife sitting next to me. It changed multiple people in there.
Yeah.
What that lady said, and it took a horrible situation, and God's grace shined brighter than ever.
Man, what
in
a
that
legacy.
moment.
Yeah.
I agree.
Amazing.
And I think you're a little bit of a testament to that, being able to handle you went from a top draft pick, finally, it's all going to be worth it, come from nothing, I'm finally going to get paid, change the total trajectory, I'm the bloodline breaker in my family, to all of a sudden, nope, suddenly you're not. So, suddenly you're going to throw a knuckleball.
That's right. Yeah. No, that's relatable for me, for sure.
And what do you have any final words for anybody out there? We're all battling something.
Yeah, I just think that the realization that we're all, broken people trying to serve broken people. And I mean, I think that's part of my journey, at least, is understanding my own brokenness, and where does that brokenness take me? It doesn't take me to shame.
Yeah.
Don't let it take you to shame. That's a trap.
Yeah.
It was a trap for me for a long time.
Yep.
Let it take you to curiosity and gratitude and open-handedness. For so long, I had held on so tight to my career, to what people thought of me. When I learned to kind of just open my palms and say, God, use me. I know it's going to be hard, but it's also going to be incredible. Things changed for me. So that would be my final parting shot. Would be that. Just understand it's okay that you're broken. You are, and it's okay.
Finding the right health plan can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Backed by over 12 years of experience and more than 20 national and local awards, Team Hyder is here to help you navigate your options and choose a plan that fits your family's needs and your budget. Visit teamhyder.com today to schedule your consultation and get the coverage that you deserve. I can't thank you enough for the time today, man. I'm telling you, this has been 5 years in the works for us.
It's awesome. I'm glad to be here.
And I would just, I would leave everybody else by just kind of saying, every time people thought you were done, you came back bigger and better than ever.
Like the phoenix, man, rising from the ashes.
That's right.
Well, I feel like I'm still doing that.
Well, I'm excited for what your next move's going to be. I'm excited. So, and when you figure out what it is, or maybe you already know and it's time to do it, there's going to be a seat right there open for you to come talk about it.
I'll take it. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, brother, thanks for the hang today.
Yeah, it's been great.
Folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hit Streak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.